We talk a lot about the mainline Pokemon games on this channel, but let's not kid ourselves. The Pokemon anime has to be one of the biggest pillars of the entire franchise.
Probably only second to those said games.
However, for how prolific it's been and all of the adventures that Ash, Team Rocket, and the rest of the cast have gone through, there are definitely a few episodes that have gotten lost to time.
Some episodes were meant to air much earlier than they originally did, but due to certain real-world events, they ended up getting shifted around due to scheduling conflicts.
For example, Snow Way Out features Charmander as one of Ash's Pokemon, even though previous episodes had already shown Charmander evolving into Charizard.
An Undersea Place to Call Home, an episode revolving around a sunken ship, was explicitly delayed because it would have accidentally coincided with the sinking of the MV Soul.
Now, these episodes weren't rearranged for streaming or anything like that. So if you're binging the anime and you realize a few plot threads are kind of wonky or out of order, that's probably why.
But we're not going to dwell on episodes that were postponed. No. We're going to talk about episodes that were banned altogether, at least regionally.
So have you ever watched the anime and wondered about all those Tauros at Professor Oak's? Like, why are there so many of them? Why do they belong to Ash? I never saw him catch any Tauros.
Well, that's because the episode where Ash caught all of his Tauros was never aired outside Japan.
The Legend of Dratini sees Ash, Brock, and Misty enter the Safari Zone. And then every time Ash tries to catch a Pokemon, a Tauros runs right in front of the Pokeball that Ash is throwing.
And for some reason, everyone is packing heat.
Despite the ban, you'd almost think the USA commissioned this episode. There were a few times before this where guns appeared on the show, but this particular episode was super in your face that someone was actually about to pull the trigger. Pew pew!
Especially the Warden, considering trainers practically tore up the Safari Zone trying to find this Dratini.
So leave it to Team Rocket to force this Warden to concede, with James wielding a revolver no less.
Because of course. Though I can't say I was expecting Meowth to rock that stash. Let's move on.
Yeah. Now this next episode won't be the easiest to cover on YouTube, but we sure can try.
Beauty and the Beach is very similar to the Legend of Dratini in that you can tell that this is from an era before parents and counselors were all up in arms about the Pokemon craze.
After accidentally damaging a restaurant owner's boat, Ash and company volunteer to repay the boat owner for their troubles before his rival confiscates it.
And what better way than to have Misty enter a swimsuit contest? Yeah.
And also, not only does Team Rocket enter the competition, but James single-handedly steals the show with his inflatable... Oh no, we're not doing this.
His inflatables.
Believe it or not, this episode did air outside of Japan, but only for a little bit, and with a lot of scenes censored or turned down, if you know what I mean.
It aired in the US as a lost episode, premiering years after it chronologically should have, and only for 2 times, ever, without any home media or streaming release with the rest of the show.
You would think this would have been one of the last major bans, but then you've got to wonder. Pokemon has been airing on TV for decades, and Ash's adventure to become a Pokemon master just recently ended.
Does this mean they concretely nailed what they can and can't do?
Nope. Negative.
Yesn't.
In the Pokemon Sun and Moon episode, a touchdown for the team. Fly, Eagles, fly. Ash encounters a group of Passimian and plays American football with them. However, the groups of Passimian don't quite get along.
So, Ash tries to emulate their mannerisms to try to communicate with them better. His classmates decide to help by...
All right. What is this? What is this?
Trevor, watch it.
No. Caden, stop.
Watch it, dude. Look at... Anyway, this episode always baffled me because of how recent it is.
The Pokemon Company have historically fought time and time again against Jinx's Gen 1 design and how relatively insensitive it was.
Heck, there were some episodes pulled entirely in the US for this exact reason, including Holiday Hijinks, Stage Fright, and the Maridon Island Mismatch.
Yet here we have an episode where Ash straight up puts on, we'll call it a charcoal mask to roleplay with Pokemon.
How did no one object to this?
They not like us. They not like us.
Now, before we get to the big one, I'd like to address a number of episodes that were banned in South Korea specifically. They eventually softened up on these things, but for a time, the country was very adamant about banning any episodes that included Japanese culture or anything to do with it.
These include, let me grab my list real quick. Challenge of the Samurai.
The Ghost of Maiden's Peak.
Pokemon Sensation.
The Ninja Poke Showdown.
Riddle me this.
Bad to the Bone.
The 4th round rumble.
A Bout with a Sprout.
Fighting Flyer with Fire.
Wired for Battle.
Ariados, amigos.
A Ghost of a Chance.
From Ghost to Ghost.
Troubles Brewing.
Ringmasters.
Alright, I get it! I mean...
Doing What Comes Naturally.
Espeon not included.
For Ho-Oh the Bells Toll.
Poetry Commotion.
Dang, if that was Gen 7, they would have called it Poetry Como Ocean. And finally, going, yawn.
Oh, I'm sure South Korean fans had a lot of questions when they watched the show.
All right, I put this one off for long enough. Easily the most infamous banned episode of all time is Electric Soldier Porygon.
Let's be real. There's a very good chance you know of this episode, even if it only ever aired one time in Japan.
Unlike all of the other episodes we've talked about, this one has never re-aired in any official capacity.
It was banned worldwide.
Mr. Worldwide back here again to let you know. I just came to remind y'all. Que ese culo bota caca.
Ash and company head to the Pokemon Center only to find that the Pokemon teleporter has been acting up. It's been sending and receiving the wrong Pokemon.
This turns out to be the handiwork of who else but Team Rocket. They used a human teleportation machine to mess with the Pokemon Center and kidnap a prototype Porygon.
Ash and company track down this machine and use it to resolve the conflict, but not without Pikachu causing millions of epileptic seizures in the process.
Despite the literal millions of Pokemon episodes to air, you'd be hard-pressed to see Porygon. That's because its episode sent 700 children to the hospital due to the flashing lights.
These absolutely horrific sequences were not only heavily scrutinized around the world, but the entire Pokemon brand was put in jeopardy before it even left its home country.
The entire anime was taken off the air.
Nintendo's stock took a big hit because shareholders thought that they were involved in this.
News reports broke out detailing the event as it was happening in Japan and elsewhere.
The creators and people behind the show really had to reevaluate the situation at hand. But then there were fans sending letters hopeful that the anime would come back one day.
After 4 months, the Pokemon anime returned, although heavily altered to remove scenes with flashing lights.
And it stayed like this moving forward, even when the show moved to the USA for the first time.
This is why electricity effects moved so slowly in the anime, so you don't die from watching. Owie! It's crazy. We made this video because we thought it would be funny to point out some of the absurd reasons Pokemon episodes have been taken off the air. But now I can only wonder what would have happened if the anime was actually taken off the air, due to Porygon.
Would Pokemon ever have gotten as big as it is now?
Would Pokemon ever get to have expanded outside of Japan?
Would we even be here talking about Pokemon?
On second thought, I could just be looking way too deep into this.
Look, what's happened has happened. And what's happening is that Pokemon is bigger than it has ever been right now. And they're constantly continuing to capture the cash of the complaining community that can't comprehend content cuts for current gen consoles.
Whoa, watch it before you run out of C words, Trev. We'll get banned too.
Like and subscribe.
go.